The part of you that got you here might not be allowed to come with you. That is the truth nobody wants to admit when they start asking for a new life. You think the hard part is becoming more disciplined. Sometimes the hard part is letting the old version lose access. The old version had excuses that made sense. It had comforts that kept you alive. It had habits that protected you from disappointment. But protection can become a prison when your standards change. If you keep dragging that version into every new room, every new plan, every new morning, you will keep wondering why the future feels heavy. It is heavy because you are carrying someone who is supposed to leave. There is a strange grief that comes with growth. Nobody talks about it because it does not look dramatic from the outside. You still wake up in the same place. You still answer messages. You still open the laptop. You still move through the world like nothing happened. But inside, something is separating. Old conversations do not feel the same. Old routines feel smaller. Old distractions feel more expensive. Old permissions start to sound like chains. And part of you panics because those old things were familiar. They knew your name. They knew your weakness. They knew how to make you feel normal again. That is why the old version fights so hard. It does not always fight with chaos. Sometimes it fights with comfort. It says rest a little longer. It says answer the distraction. It says you have been good enough today. It says do not become so serious that people cannot recognize you. It says do not make the standard too high. It says come back to who we were. And if you are not paying attention, you call that voice wisdom. You call it balance. You call it being realistic. But sometimes it is only the old identity begging for another day in command. The private builder has to learn the difference. Not every familiar feeling deserves trust. Not every old comfort deserves a seat at the table. Not every version of you deserves a vote on the life you are building. In the forge, the mold has one job. It holds the metal while the new shape forms. For a season, the mold matters. Without it, the heat would spill everywhere. Without it, the form would not survive the first pour. But the mold is not the masterpiece. It is temporary structure. It is the container for a version that is not finished yet. When the metal cools enough to carry its new shape, the mold has to break away. If the mold refuses to break, it stops serving the work. It becomes a cage around the thing it helped create. That is what happens with old versions of you. Some of them were useful. The version that stayed quiet may have protected you when you did not have power. The version that joked everything away may have helped you survive rooms that did not understand your ambition. The version that stayed small may have kept you from criticism when you were not ready to be seen. The version that waited for permission may have kept you connected to people you were afraid to disappoint. Do not hate those versions. They got you through heat you did not have language for. But gratitude is not the same as obedience. You can honor what protected you without letting it govern you. You can understand where a habit came from without giving it another year. You can respect the old mold without climbing back inside it. The few are not built by self-hatred. They are built by clean separation. They learn to say, that version helped me survive, but it cannot lead the next build. This is where most people stall. They want the new life, but they want the old emotional agreements to stay untouched. They want higher income with the same scattered attention. They want stronger confidence with the same private promises broken every week. They want sharper standards with the same loose boundaries. They want a dream life while still negotiating with the habits that trained them for the current one. The forge does not work like that. The fire is honest. It does not care what story you tell in public. It only responds to what you actually keep doing. If you keep feeding the old version keeps strength. If you keep rewarding the old version keeps authority. If you keep protecting the old version from consequence, the new version never gets clean command. This is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming clear. There are behaviors that cannot survive in the same body as your next standard. There are patterns that cannot come into the one-person empire you are building. There are comforts that cost too much now. There are relationships with distraction that no longer get to call themselves harmless. The old version leaves when you stop giving it proof that it still owns you. Not when you announce change. Not when you feel inspired. Not when you create a new plan. When you remove its access. That is the break. That is the sound of the mold cracking. So make this practical. Do not try to destroy your entire old identity in one dramatic night. That usually becomes another performance. Pick one old version behavior. 1. The behavior you already know is keeping the old shape alive. Maybe it is checking your phone before you have earned the day. Maybe it is telling everyone the plan before you have protected the work. Maybe it is leaving the important task until your energy is already gone. Maybe it is saying yes because silence feels uncomfortable. Maybe it is buying another tool instead of finishing the asset. Maybe it is consuming more advice because execution would expose the truth. Name it clearly. Do not make it poetic. Do not make it vague. Write the behavior in plain language. Then ask one harder question. What reward does the old version get from this? Every old pattern has a reward. Avoidance rewards you with temporary safety. Distraction rewards you with relief. Over-explaining rewards you with approval. Procrastination rewards you with the fantasy that tomorrow you will be sharper. Low standards reward you with fewer confrontations. Once you see the reward, remove one access point. Not forever. For today. Move the phone out of the room until the first block is done. Close the browser tab that keeps reopening the old loop. Do not send the announcement. Do not ask the person who always weakens your standard. Do not buy the thing. Do not negotiate with the hour you already promised. This is how the new version earns trust. Small removals. Kept standards. Quiet proof. The old version will not leave because you insult it. It leaves because it no longer has a job. It leaves because the new version handles the morning. It leaves because the new version finishes the block. It leaves because the new version tells the truth faster. It leaves because the new version can feel discomfort without handing the wheel back. That is the real crown work. Not pretending you are above the old pattern. Not posting like you have already transcended it. Building enough clean evidence that the old pattern stops looking like home. For the next 24 hours, do not chase a whole new identity. Hold one new standard. One clean refusal. One finished work block. One boundary kept without a speech. One old behavior denied access. That is enough heat for today. That is enough pressure to begin. Let the old version leave. Do not chase it down because it feels familiar. Do not invite it back because other people still know you by that shape. Do not confuse grief with warning. Sometimes the sadness is only the sound of separation. Sometimes the discomfort is only the mold breaking. Sometimes the silence after an old habit dies is the first room your future has ever had to breathe. You are allowed to outgrow the version that protected you. You are allowed to disappoint the pattern that kept you small. You are allowed to stop answering the voice that needs you distracted, agreeable, underbuilt, and available to everything except your own becoming. Today, pick the behavior. Remove the access. Keep the standard. And when the old version reaches for the wheel, do not argue. Do not explain. Do not purr. Return to the work. The new shape is not asking for permission. It is asking for proof. Give it proof.